Hello, this is AstrologyNewsReport.com with your hosts, David Anton Savage and Ron Berger.
Now we go to our third segment of this week's report, People in the News, where we will analyze the Vedic astrology birth chart of a newsworthy person, place, or event.
This week we've decided to analyze the birth chart of modern India, a country now in the process of choosing a new government.
Here we are talking about the relatively new 20th century political entity called India. But obviously this is a country and a culture that goes back thousands of years.
The modern state was born when the British finally quit India at 0 hours, August 15th, 1947. India became an independent state. And if you have ever wondered where Salman Rushdie got the name for his book, Midnight's Children, now you have your answer.
All right. First off, we see something symbolically perfect. For a country whose culture holds the cow as a revered and sacred animal with special status and laws in place to protect it. The ascendant is Taurus, the sign of the bull.
But I have to say, Ron, I really wonder if the British had used Vedic astrologers working for the dark side to pick the time for the handover. Not exactly an easy chart to have for a person, let alone a nation.
Well, what we can say for sure is that this chart is heavily karmic for the birth chart of India, because it is under the influence of the profound Kala Sarpa Yoga, the serpent of time.
Such a yoga is formed when everything in a given birth chart, including the ascendant degree, are all on one side of the Rahu-Ketu axis, leaving one half of the chart unoccupied by any planet. A Kala Sarpa Yoga has powerful implications for the modern nation-state of India.
As it does in personal charts for people who have this yoga, for countries too, it makes for a very lopsided karma. The planetary energies have been corralled behind the nodal axis, resulting in a karma that is uniquely strong in some respects, but quite void in other areas.
Well, along those lines, we can see that Rahu is in the first house, and its position shows that the birth of the country was highly transformational, with many unusual events attached to it, including a hell of a lot of Rahuian confusion.
Yes, historically British India consisted of 17 provinces and 562 princely states. The provinces were given to India or to Pakistan, and the princely states won the right to either remain independent or join either nation.
Thus, India's leaders faced the prospect of inheriting a nation fragmented between medieval-era kingdoms and provinces organized by the colonial power. Quite a sticky wicket indeed.
Yes, David, and in some outlying regions of the country, to this day, it has never been fully resolved.
At the birth of the nation, the partition of India caused 10 million people to go on the move to get on the right side of newly formed borders. And during that time, violence between Hindus and Muslims resulted in the death of 1 million, culminating in the tragic assassination of Gandhi on January 30th, 1948. India's beginnings were tumultuous, to say the least.
The very next thing about this chart that jumps right out at you is the 6-planet conjunction in Cancer in the third house. Cancer is the sign of nurturing, and the people often refer to their country as Mother India. In fact, the national song adopted in 1950 is Vande Mataram, I bow to thee, Mother.
The third house in a country's chart represents things connected with infrastructure, such as transportation, commerce, and communications, as well as basic services like water and electricity. The third house mostly signifies for everyday goings-on within the country, so we can call it the house of day-to-day survival.
And it is no mystery to anyone that so much of India's energy is taken up with the basics of life, stuff that most folks in America and Europe totally take for granted.
The third house is also the country's neighbors, like its rival Pakistan, which India was immediately at war with in the first year of its existence, the first war of 4 so far.
Having 6 planets in the third house in a chart with a Kala Sarpa Yoga in play goes a long way to understanding how things work or don't for modern India. Too many planets in one part of the chart make for a lot of imbalance and confusion.
Okay, so let's bring this into the present moment. India is now in the process of electing a new government, so it behooves us as Vedic astrologers to offer some predictions on where things are going for the largest democracy in the world.
Well, as usual, we first check out what's happening in the Vimshatari Dasha, the planetary period system, which tells us where the country is, referenced to its birth chart karma. India is currently nearing the end of its Sun major period.
The Sun is the planet of power and authority, therefore the government. But for a Taurus rising chart, the Sun rules the fourth house, which in a country's chart represents lands, the comfort of the people, national patriotism, as well as the opposition party.
Well, it's a bit tough to examine because even though the Sun represents the leadership, the Sun in this chart also rules the fourth house, which represents the opposition. And by being posited in the third house, the Sun is in the 12th to the fourth house, implying loss to the opposition party or winning at great cost.
What's interesting about that last point is that the main opposition party, the Hindu nationalist BJP, is expected to come out on top in this election. Let's see if we can verify that.
But just like the circumstances surrounding how the nation got started, India's election process is a mind-boggling tangle of complexity. There are more than 814 million eligible voters. The voting takes more than a month to complete, and the vote counting does not even begin until May 16th.
Yes, it truly does reflect the circumstances of the natal third house. So much complication resulting from so many planets jammed into the part of the chart that signifies logistics.
Voting got underway on April 7th while the country was running its Mercury Sub-period, and it won't be completed until mid-May, by which time India will have begun a Ketu Sub-period. I am going to guess that, just like with the sub-periods, there's a changeover in the works.
So you have Mercury, the planet of decisions, as the sub-period ruler for the start of the election, but Ketu, the indicator of chaos, being activated when the vote counting begins.
Yeah, and when there's a Kala Sarpa Yoga in a chart, any sub-period of either Rahu or Ketu can be especially traumatic since it activates that Kala Sarpa Yoga.
An excellent point to bring up. The natal Ketu for India is in the 7th house of partnership. So there you have it, making a partnership with the demon to achieve a government.
Since India is run under a parliamentary system, either there has to be a clear majority of MPs in one party, or a coalition has to be formed. That means that opposing groups will have to find common ground, leading to the usual horse trading scenario and attendant payoffs and corruption.
Or, another way to put it, an unmitigated disaster.
The transiting planets clearly indicate this. Why would anyone hold an election when Mars is retrograde, opposed by Uranus, and Venus conjunct Neptune,
and Mercury conjunct Uranus, with a full moon eclipse thrown in for good measure? Truly a recipe for problems.
To get some more clues about the outcome, here are some particulars for some of the transiting planets when laid over the country's chart during this election cycle.
First off, we have to point out that retrograde Saturn is conjunct natal Jupiter in the 6th house of the workers and unions. Saturn's energy of restriction and delay is suppressing Jupiter, the planet of conciliation.
And Jupiter is very important for building political coalitions. Here it is in the 6th house of struggle. So Saturn's reality check energy makes natal Jupiter's job of bringing opposing sides together even harder.
I noticed that retrograde Mars will be conjunct India's natal Neptune in the 5th house, which is Virgo, one of the sub-period ruler Mercury's signs. What do you make of that, Ron?
Well, since this part of the chart is highlighted by the Mercury Sub-period, any planetary interaction here gets extra weight. In mundane astrology, the 5th house is the 8th counted from the 10th and is therefore interpreted as the end of the government.
As well as being the money of the opposition party because it is second, meaning support, from the 4th house, the opposition party. So for this analysis, we get two ways of looking at it.
But we are going to say that having a malefic planet like Mars, which is fully irritated by being retrograde, is not a plus for the 5th house.
And if Mars is attacking natal Neptune, the planet of dreams and illusions, it looks like the aspirations of those who support the opposition are prone to disappointment at this time, and such a position of Mars also does not look good for the government in power.
And then there's the problem of Mars, the action planet, hitting Neptune, the planet of deception and confusion. Doesn't sound like anything positive happening here. Our overall read is that the opposition parties will make gains, but those gains will come with high costs and some uncomfortable compromises.
Well, Ron, we shall soon find out how it all goes down.
Thanks for clicking in with us at astrologynewsreport.com.